Oh,
Hey everybody, welcome back from our break to SmartCon. Thank you for being with us and joining us. A lot of people are coming in, and we did have to cap registrations here, but if you can tell people if they're looking to get in over at the YouTube feed, we're trying to get a live feed going on YouTube so everybody can watch this. Again, my name is Andy Boyan. I'm with Chainlink, playing MC duty for the morning, and I'm really happy to have Aaron Wright with us today. Aaron is the co-founder of OpenLaw and the LAO we were just talking about. And both OpenLaw and the LAO use the Chainlink Oracle network. So Aaron, happy to have you here. I'm going to just let you take it away.
all right. Thanks so much, Andy. Let me just share my screen real quick.
Sure.
Hey, everyone. It's really great to be here. Just to give you some context, and thanks for the warm introduction, Andy. I'm a professor at Cardozo Law School. I also am the co-founder of a project called OpenLaw, and we've been building lots of really interesting things using Chainlink, and including a really awesome project called the LAO, which is a DAO that enables venture-style investing. For me, this is a really important moment. I've had the pleasure of knowing Sergey and Steve even before Chainlink existed, and just seeing kind of the power of the community here and the technology that Chainlink has built has been really incredible. And I'm really here to tell you that over the next several decades, billions upon billions of contracts will become smart. We're going to transform the way that contracts are created so that they're no longer encapsulated and built using paper documents, but they become fully digital in nature. And why is that the case? Although people often don't think about contracts, they're the dark matter of the commercial world. They're everywhere. They're in every single industry, lurking behind every single commercial transaction. And all of this is going to change over the next coming decades. And we got here not just because of the great work of Chainlink, not just because of the great work of Ethereum. This vision really started way back during even before the web began, in the Web 1 community. There was a community out in the Bay Area, which folks have referred to as the Zanimix community, and they really foresaw the vision of the future. They outlined at that point in time, again, this is even before the World Wide Web, a vision of what the internet would look like. It included hypertext, which is the World Wide Web, the digital currency, smart contracts, Ricardian contracts, virtual goods, and prediction markets. I think what we've seen over the past 40, 50 years is really the birth and growth of this vision. And the smart contracts started with, and we stand on the shoulder of many other amazing people, including Nick Szabo, who came up with the concept of smart contracts, Ian Grigg, who came up with the concept of Ricardian contracts, which I'll unpack in a little bit, and Mark Miller, who's a tremendous engineer who thought about e-rights and other ways that we could encapsulate rights online. And now we're in kind of phase two, when we're seeing not just these visionaries come up with the ideas, but we're seeing people actually build the technology. Vitalik and team obviously helping to build Ethereum, Sergey and Steve helping to build Chainlink. And in many ways, what we're doing at OpenLaw is trying to also bring this vision to fruition. And when people think about smart contracts, I think it's a little bit of a misnomer. In our mind, it's really three related technologies that work closely together. Smart contracts at a base blockchain layer, a Ricardian contract interacting with smart contracts, and obviously oracles providing the data to make this all work together. We've called this, in the OpenLaw context, the OLE stack. And this is what I think the vision of the future is bringing. So for those that may be new to the Chainlink ecosystem, for those that may be new to smart contracts, just to give you a sense of what's happening here, smart contracts are little bits of computer code that run on a blockchain primarily, and they're used to create digital assets, define rights, and manage an asset's movement. Oracles make smart contracts dynamic. They're really the linchpin. So without oracles, you can do lots of things with smart contracts, but you can't do as many interesting things. And Ricardian contracts manage the real world risk, the meat space risk. So all the things that you may not be able to encapsulate in code, you can still use a Ricardian contract, which is a way to represent a legacy, traditional, real-world contract in a digital format. And this is our vision of what the Web3 smart contract stack will look like. This is the OLE stack with Ethereum, OpenLaw, and Chainlink kind of all working closely together. And this is being explored by enterprises. We're still kind of in the early days of seeing this vision come to fruition. But on the OpenLaw side, we've been working with tremendous partners like the LSTA, which manages a massive syndicated loan marketplace. We've been exploring derivatives and other ways to represent other high-value contracts with organizations like ISDA. We've been working with a handful of other legacy organizations, really to start to see how we can transform the existing world into this one that is digital. And one thing that we're excited to announce, we announced this earlier today, you're now actually able to execute smart contracts, which incorporate Chainlink oracles into the Microsoft Word ecosystem. So the way this works is people can create and execute smart contracts now using the legacy tools that they have at their disposal. So we've abstracted away a lot of the pain points that we felt being developers in interacting with and generating smart contracts and also smart legal agreements. So you can now use OpenLaw to automatically generate an agreement, filling out a simple form. You can pull in a Chainlink oracle, either the data itself or incorporate an oracle into the underlying smart contract. That can all be packaged together into one unitary document that can be opened up in Microsoft Word. And using a plugin that we developed that you can install with a click via Microsoft's App Store, you can actually execute the smart contract with a click of a button. Once the parties sign the agreement with a click, you're able to actually trigger the smart contract and also pull in any Oracle price data or other information. But there's more. We've also built this so that all the information and data from the smart contracts and all the information and data from an Oracle can be saved in legacy systems. So you can save the document itself in Dropbox or OneDrive. You can export that data into Excel, Google Sheets, and you can even create workflows that kind of manage that process so that we can begin to incorporate this technology into a greater range of commercial transactions. And the nice thing here is that we built a whole framework to make it easier to bridge into other systems. So we started with the Microsoft ecosystem, with parts of the Google ecosystem, with Dropbox, and a handful of other integrations, but it's going to become easier and easier and easier to plug this into other systems. But we're really not just here to build for the legacy world. We started OpenLaw to really build this future digital world, and we're building really for this future of commerce. So this smart contract stack that I showed before is really beginning to bridge DeFi for the real world. It's getting incorporated into an increasing range of DeFi products. For example, we're using OpenLaw now in conjunction with Aave to help bring new advanced forms of lending products to the world. A really interesting form of credit delegation that will hopefully make it easier for people to take out loans and to receive credit if they need it. At the same time, we're using the same stack to power DAOs in ways that comply with US law, in ways that make people feel comfortable to pool their capital together and begin to do something really productive. So this is just beginning, and there's plenty more to come. And that's, I think, what's really exciting about this technology and about this stack. But I wanted to just pause for a minute and just outline, why does this matter? Why is it a big deal that we have kind of the technology and the tools to begin to bridge DeFi into the real world? It matters because this is what's going to enable the digitization of real world assets. There's a tremendous amount of value in the legacy world, in those legacy assets, and that value is primarily managed via traditional legal agreements. And using the OLE stack, we're going to be able to begin to bring these assets into the Ethereum ecosystem. It's going to help create a funnel of value that really will grease the wheels of DeFi. So right now we're seeing lots of amazing projects being built, a lot of really innovative technology that's getting deployed, but in many ways it's just recycling digital value that's that's already kind of at our disposal. For this really to get to the next level, we need to create a funnel of value that will bring in even more capital into the ecosystem. This will increase the adoption of Ethereum. This will create more demand for Oracle data. And this will all reside on open, permissionless, decentralized systems. And that's critically important if we want to bring this to the masses. So what's fascinating here is that this is going to be a process. And I think in the end, this is where we're going to land. As Ethereum gains adoption and as the digital world expands, I think real world risk is going to be increasingly managed via DAOs. I think we're going to start to see this technology and some of these real world risks that today we have and manage via traditional legal agreements, increasingly getting managed by groups of people. Smart contracts for commoditized agreements, things like derivatives, things like syndicated loans, things like standard agreements. I think they're going to be increasingly provided on a take it or leave it basis based on some underlying smart contract technology, potentially represented in some sort of tokenized form. And governance tokens and DAOs will manage the real world risks. So people will standardize around a set of smart contracts, and the risks related to interacting with that smart contracts will be managed via DAO. And folks that have governance tokens who can begin to kind of tweak the underlying code to make it better or deal with some other risks that may manifest in the way that it's presented to the public. So this is, I think one of the endpoints of the stack that everybody's building here, with Ethereum kind of sitting at the root with some sort of smart contract protocol that's beginning to tackle a commercial relationship or social relationship in some sort of way. Those smart contracts will likely rely on oracles, and presumably those are going to be Chainlink oracles. We're going to start to see DAOs increasingly being formed. Those DAOs are going to presumably have a governance token that's going to manage the risk related to the smart contract. And to protect the members of the DAO itself and to structure that transaction, you're going to need Ricardian contracting systems like what we provided for OpenLaw to really be at the root. So things are looking bright. We've come a long, long way. I mentioned this in the green room right before we started, but I've known Sergey and Steve for a long time. It's tremendous to see so many people interested in smart contracts, so many people interested in really rebuilding this future. And we've come a tremendous amount in a very, very short amount of time. But there's still a lot more work to do, right? We're still in early days of making sure that the world can interact with smart contracts. So put on your boots, report for duty, ignore all those haters because there's plenty of haters, and keep on building. Because if we do this, we can really transform the world. So thanks. That's about it. I'm happy to take any questions that folks may have in the next couple minutes.
All right, we'll help chat for some questions and ask them. Aaron, you guys just released that Microsoft Word thing this morning. Can you talk just a little bit about that? Like, how does it work? What is it? Just the basics of it?
Yeah, sure. So you can go and log on to OpenLaw and set up any legal agreement that you want. As part of that, you can incorporate a call to a Chainlink oracle, so you can pull in the data itself. Once the agreement is generated, it can be manifested into a Microsoft Word document, something that people who are lawyers or people that work in the commercial setting can easily understand and digest, et cetera. Under the hood, though, in that agreement, you can include calls to smart contracts. So those smart contracts just kind of sit in the back, almost like opening up the hood for a car, right? The smart contract just kind of sitting on the back. The agreement may account for that in some sort of way. So you can open it up in Microsoft Word. You can edit it some more if you want. You can play around with it to make sure that it kind of suits your needs. And with a simple plugin that you can download via the Microsoft App Store soon, we're still getting just approval to get it listed, but that shouldn't be an issue. You'll be able to sign the contract right in Microsoft Word. That signature will get secured via blockchain, and then that will trigger the smart contract execution as well. So either the data is getting pulled in from before, or the smart contract itself may reference some Chainlink Oracle data that gets triggered at that point in time. So it's really end to end. The beautiful thing about what we've done in OpenLaw is we turned all these contracts into data objects. So all the data related to the contract itself can also be pulled out and pushed into other systems as well. Now that contracts are not just simply paper documents that are hard to read and hard for computers to understand, all that information can get pushed into really any other system that we want, whether that's Excel to keep track of it, or Google Sheets to keep track of it, or really another data structure. All that becomes possible right now, which I think is pretty amazing. We've also built some really nice basic workflow tools, so you can begin to structure even how you generate these agreements off the bat. So the hope here is that people that are working at, in legacy institutions and large enterprises, anywhere around the globe, they can begin to play around with this technology, right? They don't need to settle for these boring, old school legal contracts. They can begin to play around with dynamic contracts and make these contracts more responsive, make them more accurate using Chainlink data, a whole bunch of other things that folks may want, and it's all at their fingertips, which is pretty awesome. Yeah, and I just saw this in the chat, although it's running really fast. But even if you don't want to have the contract signed on a blockchain, and we have a basic signature solution, you're going to be able to sign it using DocuSign. You're going to be able to sign it using HelloSign. So all these legacy tools now can really take advantage of the technology that we've been collectively building. So it's been pretty great.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit more about Ricardian contracts and just what that is, how that works? There's a number of questions in the chat about how DAOs can govern things in the real world, and how micro we can get for management and those sort of things. So can you talk a little bit just about how those contracts work and how they might be governed?
Yeah, absolutely. So the notion of a Ricardian contract is really taking what you would think of today as a legacy contract and turning it into data. So all the relevant parts are turned into data, and that data is cryptographically secured and verifiable. And that's why you need a blockchain for this, right? Blockchains are amazing at storing cryptographically secured and verifiable data. And that's what OpenLaw does. So you could think of OpenLaw as taking these legacy boring documents and turning them into, a race car. So instead of having it just trapped in paper, not knowing what's in the agreement itself, you're able to structure it as a data object. You're able to cryptographically verify all the data that's being inputted so that you know that that's actually accurate. And then on top of that, you're able to secure that with a blockchain. And now that it's secured with the blockchain, you can start to plug into other awesome technology that blockchain technology provides, like oracles and smart contracts, et cetera. So the moment that you sign something, you can trigger all those other actions that could happen on chain. So it really is a complementary set. That's why we view this as a stack, right? So if we want to suck in this real world value, we're going to need to manage real world risks. We're going to need to manage things that folks in the real world worry about. And this is really the way you do that. You begin to present contracts in a way that work for people, and that can get as micro or as macro as you want, right? Contracts can be really large, they can be really small, they can kind of be everywhere. I actually tried to look up before this started how many contracts there are created annually in the world. It has to be, I think it's probably about 1 trillion a year. Maybe it's an incredible amount of activity, and now we get to begin to tap into this. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, well, Gleb Dudka just a few sessions earlier was talking about how part of the challenge in enterprise is, and doing some of the blockchain sort of stuff is you don't have a lot of that traditional contract infrastructure. You sign on with your wallet in your browser and you're staking, and all of a sudden you're doing all these things. And so formalizing some of that in contracts that combine those two worlds may go a long way for enterprise adoption as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's the nice thing here is you can make all those relationships legally binding, right? So, what we're doing now in the DeFi ecosystem, I know we have 1 minute left, is it's really important, but, frankly, it's small potatoes. It's small value as compared to what happens, on the desks of big banks in Wall Street or, in other major organizations. So to get to that point, this is what we're going to need, at least in the short term. And I think in the long term, what we're going to see is what I talked about at the end of the presentation, kind of an evolution away from these paper agreements into these DAO-based managed smart contract systems. So it's going to be pretty awesome. Yeah, they're going to be at least legally binding. I'm seeing some comments, at least in the US, they'll be legally binding, and in probably many other jurisdictions around the globe. But the US, lots of problems in the US, but we make things pretty easy on contracts. We love contracts here. We're a nation built on contracts.
Oh, that was my next question, is following from the chat, is that domestic? Let me just double check, Rory. Are we out of time or do we have more? All right, we have some more. Let's get some other questions here going on. Yeah, so we have these domestic laws. Are there international laws? How would they be different for some of these contracts? Like, can you talk to some of the international implications of these?
Yeah, so every country determines whether or not they want to, what criteria is going to make a contract valid. So in the US, you just really need it in writing. There's nothing limiting it from just being an underlying Ethereum-based smart contract. If, with an appropriate design, not all smart contracts will necessarily be binding, but with an appropriate design, you can have an entirely code-based contract be binding between people. But to just limit any questions, something like what we're doing, a recording contracting system like OpenLaw, just closes any argument that the relationship is not a binding relationship. That means you can choose the law that provides, you can deal with things like dispute resolution, which will open up the door for online dispute resolution or blockchain-based dispute resolution. All that type of stuff can be defined in a simple agreement, automatically generated, and we can begin to kind of administer even the dispute resolution parts. Other jurisdictions around the globe, they're just not, they haven't seen the future as quickly, so they may not have accommodated digital contracting off the bat, or this notion that people could express their relationships in code. But in the US, we dealt with this back in the 90s. So kind of in the phase one of the internet to enable e-commerce, there was lots of activity in the US to make sure that electronic contracts were binding. And so we can piggyback off of that law here. So it's we're in really good shape.
Now, so with DeFi, we're hearing a lot about, essentially engineers and developers that have a finance background, or vice versa, people with financial background that have development background have a significant advantage. Is this going to be the same thing with contract lawyers? Are we going to need to start recruiting contract lawyers that can read smart contracts or teach them, or how does that impact?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think it's always helpful to have folks that understand this world. I use this analogy that contracts are like dark matter, in part because nobody really understands how dark matter works. In many ways, contracts are similar, right? Lawyers are kind of the high priests of contracts. They understand how it all works, but not many other people do. So in order to build this completely digital feature, the lawyers need to translate part of their knowledge base into code. So to the extent that you can bridge both of those worlds, I think that there'll be a lot of value to be had. But I do think we're moving to a point where hopefully we can liberate contracts from their paper-based form and make them entirely digital in nature. I don't think that's going to be every contract, but I think it's going to be an increasing range of contracts over time. So I think it's going to be a good time to be a digitally native lawyer. It's going to be a good time, like you noted, if you're somebody that's has financial experience and understands how markets work and are able to translate that into some sort of smart contract code. That's going to be amazing. And at the same time, if you want to think about things that just possibly couldn't happen before, that's why you need services and tools like Chainlink, right? You need the ability to have real world data at your fingertips is just amazing. And that's really, I think we're going to see not, horseless carriages, but actually new and innovative technology. It's really going to be around how do you incorporate some of this Oracle data to just do things that we couldn't even think about a couple of years ago.
Right. We've the digital revolution. We begin by moving communication online with messages, and then eventually images and documents, which are really just paper representations. But now it's the actual agreement itself.
Well, it's this vision that the Zanimix community put together, right? It was, let's get content with hyperlinks. Let's get money with digital currencies. Let's get contracts with smart and Ricardian contracts. let's get property virtualized, and let's be able to cut through the noise of prediction markets. And really, that's the future that we're building towards. And we've only done really one of them. We've only really brought content online. What we're talking about in the blockchain ecosystem is 3 more or 4 more, or the rest of that entire vision. So it's pretty amazing. And that's why I think there's a tremendous amount of value. My personal belief, I actually think blockchain tech and the stuff that we're doing here is going to be considered in hindsight to be tremendously more valuable than everything that we've seen with the internet off the bat. So it's going to be a really interesting run.
All right, cool. Well, that's actually a fantastic like sort of cap, and so I'm not going to push you two more because that's a really nice summary. Aaron, where can we reach you? Follow you on Twitter.
I'm on Twitter. It's right there on the screen if it's still there.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for coming. We will get the next speaker going. Aaron Wright, everybody from Open Law and the Loud. Check them all out online.
Bye, guys.
All right. We have Alex Mashinsky. Hi, everybody. Again, I'm Andy Boyan with Chainlink, and I'm happy to MC and introduce people.
I can hear you.
All right. So we're having a little audio issue. We can hear you, so let him know. We'll keep chatting. All right. So we can hear you. How about you let him know in chat when he's live, and I'll drop off, and we can see.
I can't hear you, but I'll just keep going. I'll get started.
Alex Mashinsky from Celsius
Thanks, guys.
Network.
Sorry about that.
Go.
But yeah, Chainlink has been a great partner of ours. Actually, today we are going live with Chainlink as an oracle for the Celsius network. So if you don't know what Celsius is, go to our website, celsius.network, or take a look at our app, download our app. I just posted on Twitter a link with $20, free $20 if you download the app and get started. Celsius was probably the first to offer interest income on crypto, and we're offering right now 6.13% on the Chainlink link token. So put your link to work and put them on the Celsius network, pay more than anybody else. Also, if you want to see an Sergey talking about all things smart contract, decentralization, and so on, go to our YouTube channel, and there's a great interview there with Sergey. Kudos to you guys for making it to the top 6 of All Crypto. Great event. What I'm going to talk about today is really all roads lead to decentralization, right? And my unique story of creating VoIP and now basically going to money over IP. So what we're seeing is really this mass migration of from the centralized world to the decentralized world, right? From the pyramid to the circle, and basically we're reinventing how everything operates. As you can see, if you look at DeFi or CeFi, any of that stuff, it's a complete reinvention of Wall Street. It's a reinvention of contracts with smart contracts. And again, this is where the opportunity is to come in and create something new that hasn't existed before. What we're seeing is like out of control printing and of money, and inflation that's going to come and hit us, which is not what the Fed telling you. It's not a good thing. It's a bad thing. It's good for the Fed. It's bad for you. The Fed printed more money in the last 6 months than it did in 100 years. If you don't think that's a tsunami that's gonna drown all of us with inflation and devaluation and debasement of the currency, then you don't know what's coming. So again, smart contracts, crypto are the only safety zone. And if you look at the last 2,000 years of civilization, you'll see that almost every currency, every reserve currency in the world lasted about 100 years. Besides the Roman Empire, almost everybody else lasted only 100 years. And we're at the end of this era where the dollar is the dominant currency. I think we're going to start seeing somebody take it over. And the question is it going to be a decentralized currency like Bitcoin or or Ethereum, or is it going to be a centralized version of the dollar, which is what everybody else is working on? Smart contracts are here to really to replace fractional reserves and the centralized banking process that we live with today. The system doesn't work. The debt, the leverage in the system is killing all of us, and our kids are going to have to pay the bills of all of this excess spending that we're going through today. Even though the world has about 255 trillion in assets and we all feel super rich, behind this there's about 247 trillion of debt, meaning that if you net the two out, there's almost nothing left. So all of this wealth creation that we are experiencing is because we owe a mountain of debt. And the beauty of smart contract, the beauty of DeFi is that it only operates on real assets. You cannot do the shenanigans and all the stuff that's happening on Wall Street and with financial institutions, because on the blockchain you cannot take the same assets and use it 5 times. What Celsius focused on was really the creation of interest income. We invented the two things we contributed to this smart contract DeFi revolution, where one was inventing the whole idea that you can earn interest income on digital assets like Bitcoin, Ethereum. We have 32 different assets, more than anybody else. And the second thing was that if you can, in addition to being able to earn in kind, meaning Bitcoin on Bitcoin, we invented the idea that you can earn a token on your main asset. So getting paid in sell token was the first time that you can own an asset, deposit it in a smart contract, and then get something else, a token as yield on top of your regular assets. And now you can see Comp and many other companies trying to do the same thing. So the reason there is such a need for that is because banks, as you see here on the slide, have basically consolidated. They've merged with each other. There's out of 3,000 banks, there's basically 4 banks control over 60% of all the assets in the United States. And as they did that, you can see the gray in the background, they've dramatically lowered what they pay us or what they actually give us as interest income, because they don't have to pay us anything, right? They basically got us as customers. Another way of looking at it is then, since we went off the gold standard in 1970, that's also the year 1971, the year that the microprocessor was created. If you were in finance or in tech, you were on the yellow line and you did exceptionally well. But if you were in any other industry, your compensation flattened out because of the debasement of the dollar. So, and really, smart contracts and the revolution we're going through is going to reset this, right? It's going to allow people to start earning based on their contribution versus their ability to generate profit, because all the profit in the last 50 years was basically created in those two industries, right? Tech or finance. So Money over IP, or MOIP, really talks about how do you take this whole idea of digital assets and tokenize it, or express value, exchange value, express contracts on a platform that enables you to transact 24/7, 365, and enables you to do things that you can't really do in traditional markets. And the blockchain really is the underlying kind of layer 0 that enables that. And then again, you got additional layers being built on top, with smart contract being one of the critical layers that enables us to do what we're looking to do. We had 3 waves of innovation, right? The infrastructure wave, where we got kind of the basic blockchains, the middleware, and now we have the dApps, right? And really, the mass adoption is going to come when enough of these dApps are going to solve enough of the problem. And we think that, again, interest income is the critical killer app, and Celsius is very proud to be the first to really create that, convince people that this is a viable alternative to banks. Celsius today pays, for example, 11% on your stable coins, more than anybody else. You don't have to do farming. You don't have to jump from here to there. You just deposit your USDC and earn 11% or 15% if you want to earn in sell instead of in kind. So these are things that's 100 times more than your average bank in the United States. And these are the type of things that are going to bring several 100 million people onto the blockchain. So to get mass adoption, you need many, many waves of adoption. I think, again, we've seen retail come in early. Now we have a lot of crypto funds, right? There's over 800 crypto funds that have launched. Definitely a lot of market maker and so on, but we're still missing the traditional asset manager, the family offices, the pension funds. Those guys are just tiptoeing into this. And again, the OCC kind of opening up or saying it's okay to own these assets is definitely a watershed event. But we still kind of, most of the US users and international users are still operating in the comfort zone, right? If you look at, they're happy with the US dollar. They might go into gold, but it's pretty hard to get them into stable coins or into Bitcoins. And really, part of what we need to do here is convince people that, again, with the coming inflation, with the debasement, with all this money being printed, that we're going to need to really move people further to the right to take more and more non-correlated assets and own less and less assets that are in dollars, because your house, your income, your job, everything is in dollars. And if that's going to lose its value very quickly, you better use some smart contracts to move over. So kind of looking at the last 10 years, 11 years, really we had 4 waves of adoption, right? So Satoshi comes up with this brilliant idea and he hands off the baton to anarchists to try to make this a world event, but there wasn't enough of them. Maybe 1 million people or so of anarchists joined crypto. And that was basically 2008 through 2011. So they had to hand off the baton to the libertarians. We had another wave of adoption, maybe 3 or 4 million people joined crypto. And the next wave was the libertarians really handed off the baton to the speculators, right? That's how we've seen crypto hit 20,000. That's when the speculators were sure they're going to be able to hand off the baton to Wall Street, but Wall Street dropped the baton. And my point here is that if we want to get mass adoption, it's going to be many more people like you and me. It's not going to be Wall Street who saves us and takes Bitcoin or other assets to new all-time high. As we're seeing with DeFi, right? What we're seeing is a lot of retail guys coming and using DeFi to basically earn yield and create the income for themselves over the long time. So if you look at the tech history, you'll see many different waves. For example, we went from centralized software to open source software, and now software is eating up the world. But basically Web 3.0, or what I call decentralized blockchain, is really the big fish here, is going to eat up all of the other centralized solution. And that is an opportunity for all of you to reinvent yourself and create. There's so many, there's a need for so many different innovations that whatever your job was in the old world, in the centralized world, you can find and innovate and create a better solution using smart contract and using the blockchain in the new world. And I've seen that again and again in the tech world, in the communications world, where we've seen different standards kind of being come and go. And the quantum blockchain, which is where we headed to, is really going to even overtake the TCP/IP network, as we need more and more basically zero proof, and we're using smart contract, and we're using all of the cryptography that is necessary to verify and secure our transactions. So all of that innovation is just in the beginning. You're at the first inning of this happening. And that's why, like a joke, I say that if you feel like you're part of the 99%, guess what? On a blockchain, you're part of the 1%. You're at the beginning of the beginning. So the public blockchain will change the world. It's not going to be a private blockchain. It's not going to be coming from a corporation or coming from a government. It's going to be, again, this combination of decentralized app, having amazing token economics, and having a secure and immutable blockchain with a great consensus mechanism that makes all of this stuff work together. And that's really part of what Celsius, I think, has done better than most. So to grow the community, you need to really combine I call it E equals MC square, right? So in this case, Ethereum. If you want to make Ethereum very, very valuable and the mainstream, you need a lot of members and you need a lot of credit. What does it mean, credit? It's the ability to transact, again, using smart contracts, for example, create economic value, create this ability to transact 24/7, 365, which trumps any kind of existing system that relied on the banking system or traditional mechanisms that have a lot of limitations on them. And what we're seeing is that slowly crypto is eating up all the asset classes in the world. You can see slowly, it's basically, it's the best performing asset class in the last 10 years. And as all of these other asset classes have a hard time effectively dealing with the banking system, with central banks, with the debasement, crypto is really starting to eat all of these different asset classes. So, but we still need to cross the chasm. I think we had two amazing milestones. Again, the creation of Bitcoin, the creation of Ethereum, and the question is now, how do we cross to mass adoption? What's going to get us there, right? And there's a lot of people who have a lot of different ideas. Some people believe in security tokens. I think that's going to take a long period of time. Some people believe in Libra. I don't think Libra is a good thing for crypto or a good thing for decentralization. But I'm a big supporter of stablecoins. In my view, stablecoins are the catalyst, the thing that's going to get again hundreds of millions of people to really adopt this. Again, Celsius supports 12 different stablecoins. You can use them to earn yield. You can use them to borrow other things. You can take loans in stablecoins. So all of that you can do right now. Millions of dollars. Celsius has over $1 billion in assets, 1.1 billion, 150,000 users. So dollar for dollar more than I think anyone else when you count just net assets out there. And what the banking model is really has worked well for the bankers, but did not work so well for you. You get less than 1%, but when you want to borrow something on your credit card, you pay 24%. Again, 95% of the value is going to the bank or is going to the issuer of the loan. And all the banker is doing is introducing you to your neighbor who's borrowing on their credit card. And what Celsius decided to do is really allow you to earn 7, 8, 9% while we're charging the borrower half or a third of what the banks traditionally charge them. So that kind of lending borrowing model is something that is definitely taking off. What you're seeing right now with all of the farming and everything else is effectively lending and borrowing. And again, we're happy to have originated that, created that, and now I think we have something like 50 copycats, but Celsius still pays the highest rates. If you go to our website, you'll see all the rates on the 32 coins we support. And again, follow me on Twitter, Mashinsky, @Mashinsky. You can get that code that I just posted. And if you use it, you'll get $20 when you open your Celsius account. Let me go through here. So what Celsius is using with the smart contract is really this flywheel that uses the fact that you have more users that are putting more assets. More assets means more loans means more income, and more income means we are buying our own token, right? We're creating more and more value inside our community, and we're using Chainlink for all of our oracles, so we get data feeds on pricing and execution and settlement using these oracles, which is an amazing service, which is fully decentralized. So these are all great things. Let me just skip through some slides here to get to some of the stuff I want to talk to you about. So we talked about VoIP to MOIP. Exchanges today really socialize losses, right? Many of them had hacks and many of them charge you fees versus Celsius and other DeFi providers who really socialize profits. So you need to really decide who you're supporting in this industry and realize what's good for you and what's good for the industry. And decentralization is really a war between toll collectors, which are the banks and the financial institutions, and users. Users don't want any tolls, right? And again, the blockchain crypto enables you to bypass all of that. And to bring the next 100 million people, you need really less volatility and more utility. And part of what Celsius created here is more utility. Interest income is an amazing utility that I think everybody needs. Bitcoin remains still the doomsday insurance, right, policy. That's what most people kind of use it today. But stable coins and smart contracts are really a source of everyday's interest income, right? So these are things that you can definitely use very, very effectively to create yield. And crypto is here to replace the middleman, the person who sits in the middle, the banker, with middleware, right? Middleware is an automated smart contract that enables you to transact on predetermined oracles and so on and earn yield, right? And while Bitcoin is kind of be great to replace gold, Ethereum and smart contracts are going to replace the banks. So, you know, living with the banks is like living in a bad marriage. You know, you have one side of the relationship that just takes and gives nothing back. You get really nothing back at your bank. They charge you money to deposit your money with them. Makes no sense whatsoever. We pay you money to deposit your money with us, right? And that's what it should be. Let's see what else we have here. So again, Fed is not your friend. Low inflation is good for the people who are already rich. Low unemployment means there's not going to be any revolution. And I think we're now going through this mass shakeout of this whole thing. The Fed is here not to protect you or low unemployment. They're here to just make sure the bubble doesn't pop. And that's not good for you. Okay, so the dollar is a bad store of value, but a great form of payment. And Bitcoin is a bad form of payment, but a great store of value. So that's it for me today. Thank you, guys, and I appreciate having me on the show. And I'll be taking your questions in the what is it? A separate room, right?
Yeah, there's a separate room and an AMA coming up at 12. It looks like. So you can guys can head over there and catch Alex Mashinsky. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us your insights there. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks, Andy.
Yeah, no problem. To the viewers, we are going to reset the stream really for 1 sec. You do not need to do anything, but there will be a quick 2-minute break. And then we'll be back with token listings coming to DeFi as fundraising mechanisms with Cami Russo moderating. So stay on for that or head over and catch Alex Mashinsky in just a few minutes. Thanks, everyone.